Hello and welcome to Executive Tech Talks, the show where we talk to executives about their technology tribulations and triumphs. Thanks for tuning in. Before we begin, our sincerest thanks to this episode's exclusive sponsor. And now, here's your host, Johna Johnson, who will introduce today's guest.
Hello, everyone. I'm delighted to introduce you to Dharmendra Kapadia. Dharm is the Associate Director of Data Strategy, Architecture, and Governance, EquiLend. Dharm, I am so happy that you could be here today.
Oh, thank you very much, Johna. I'm very happy to be here as well.
And I'm equally happy to be talking about the topic that you and I have put together, which is AI and machine learning. So let's get started by level setting a little bit. What's the current landscape of AI and machine learning for financial services?
Well, Johna, I think you've seen maturity in the AI space for machine learning over the last 3 to 5 years. You have some firms that have active projects going on. They're actively implementing this within, and they're using AI and machine learning in either their platforms exposed to their clients or internally. Others are still exploring, and they're not quite sure where they want to be in the AI space and where it fits within their business paradigm. Okay,
great. And I know you mentioned that, people are doing some first generation exploratory work. I know this was kind of a question that we had at the end originally, but I'd like to ask you now, for those who are just getting started, what's the best way to get started with AI and machine learning?
So I think if you take a look at organizations that have a lot of data, many of them, if you go back maybe 5 to 7 years, were doing business intelligence, or that's what it was called at the time. And they were putting self-service reporting on top of business intelligence. So I think if they look internally, they've already got a team that has started to go into data analytics and maybe some rudimentary or introductory machine learning. And then that's the team that they can expand and use to start their journey into AI. Others are actively hiring bespoke teams to start from the ground up or to augment the people that they already have. So I think there's many different avenues that they can take. And you see, that's why I said before, different firms are in different parts of their AI and machine learning journey.
So what I think is interesting about this is you said start with the people. So look at your team, decide, use those as the core, the nucleus, as it were, and then apply kind of good, better, best to evolve them into the go-forward team and start with that business intelligence team. What about the tools and technologies? Somewhere in this process, you need to start adding tools and technologies, but do you wait until you have the perfect team first and then give them a budget? Or do you, how and when and where do you start blending in the tools?
One of the reasons you try to start internally is you'll have people in your organization that know your business and know some of your existing data. And you've already built some tool set around that, whether it's simply SQL and databases, maybe some data transformations and some reporting and visualization. What you want to do then is to bring in people to enhance that and the tool set that they're required to move into the AI and machine learning. Many of these tools are available in open source. Some will be commercial products that are either built on open source or custom created by some of the vendors that are in that space that are providing those tools. Now, those tools may actually sit on top of some existing tools you have. So, for example, it's a tool that may automatically extract data out of your database to make it quicker and easier for you to start your journey.
So here's an interesting question. I'm going to push a little bit on this because I love how you're going. It sounds like you take the people you have and enhance them with the people you need, and take the tools you have and enhance them with the tools you need. But there's a bit of a chicken and egg here. If I have to go hire people with expertise in a certain tool set, but I don't have the expertise myself to tell them what tools I'm looking for expertise in, how do I square that circle?
if you hire the people that have expertise, they normally come with familiarity with a set of tools. It might be certain AI models. It could be open source. It could even be platforms that are out there. So I think they help you make some of those decisions. And then it's up to you to say, does it fit within my enterprise? You may also have internal enterprise architecture and other committees that vet these tools, and that should still be part of your process. Is not to blindly just bring tools in, whether they're open source or commercial. You still need to go through whatever established process you have, where you check out all the tools, check out the components. Are they secure? Are they actually doing what they say they're doing? And does it fit within your enterprise?
Okay, that's actually really interesting. And there's 2 points I want to come back to. Really zeroing in on that open source, because I know that's an area you're passionate about, as well as integrating into the rest of the enterprise. But before we do that, I want to take a quick break for a word from our sponsor, and then we'll come back and talk about those two topics.
A pause for a word from our sponsor. Model Op is proud to sponsor this Executive Tech Talk. In a highly regulated industry such as financial services, where AI generates more risk for the entire organization, Model Up automates the continuous deployment, monitoring, and governance of all AI models across the company, resulting in reliable, compliant, trustworthy, and scalable AI. We look forward to learning about your AI initiatives. A quick disclaimer. This third-party advertisement does not constitute an endorsement, guarantee, warranty, or recommendation by Executive Tech Talks, Nemertes, WSTA, today's guest, or their company. We make no representations or warranties about any product or service advertised. With that, back to our show.
Okay, so we're back, and I'd like to talk a little bit, or I'd like you to talk a little bit about open source, because I know you're passionate about that. As a cybersecurity person, I have to ask, are open source tools safe for banks?
So that's a very interesting question. In general, I think open source tools that are used widely throughout the industry, and not just in financial services, but in other industries that have had many developers and many eyes looking at it and they've been vetted, are safe. But that doesn't preclude or exclude any organization from doing their own security and their own review before they bring it in. One of the things that I tell people about open source is not only do you get the functionality of open source, but you get the bugs, you get the security holes. So it's imperative that you know, for whatever tool, what version you're running on, what its capabilities are, what's broken, and where the security holes are. I think without knowing those things, just bringing something in is potentially hazardous in the future.
Well, and you had also pointed out previously when we talked that there's always the possibility of using an AI tool to actually assess the open source code. So yet another use of AI.
Correct. We now have AI models that have been trained on open source code to identify things such as memory leaks or other potential security issues that would allow a bad actor to either break into your organization's enterprise or be able to steal data. So I think that's just another tool to help augment what processes you may already have on board. And I want to say that at EquiLend, we don't use AI tools, but we do have a process where any new platform that we bring in, whether it's a tool or a vendor, commercial or open source, we have a process that we use to vet them. And we do a bit of a deep dive on the versions we're getting and where the functionality may not fit with what we need.
Which I think makes sense, having that vetting in there. But I do like the idea of using AI as a cybersecurity tool, which kind of brings me to another one of the questions I wanted to ask you, which is, do you see using AI within an organization? Do you have the idea that you should have an AI center of excellence, that you're actually delivering AI as a service to other groups within the organization, whether it's a subgroup like cybersecurity or an entire business, does it make sense to you to have an AI center of excellence?
Well, I think that's the goal. If you take a look at organizations now, they have data center of excellences and others. There's no reason why you wouldn't have the same with AI and machine learning. AI and machine learning is here to stay. It will slowly mature, it will expand. I still think it's in its infancies in many ways, especially in terms of the capabilities. But building that center of excellence, going back to an earlier question, at EquiLend, we've had a business intelligence and data strategy group, and we've augmented that with people who have expertise in mathematics and the AI, machine learning and AI of those mathematics.
Which actually kind of brings me to the next question. So let's say you've got a center of excellence that says, listen, we know how to solve problems. We are not subject matter experts in any one problem, but we are subject matter experts in the application of our tools to solving problems. What's the best way to locate the right kinds of problems to solve if you are that center of excellence?
So I think working hand in hand with the business side who knows the pain points, where they are doing, let's say, manual processes that take more human time than they would like, where you can automate it and then apply AI or machine learning to be able to further remove it from the old way and have a new pipeline so that the people can then work on really harder problems that bring value to the company. And that's really what it's about. So AI in and of itself doesn't solve a problem unless you tell it what problem it needs to solve. It's not as if a human being can start in a job and say, this would make my job easier, this would make my job easier, this is what needs to change. AI is much more focused. And so it really needs a guiding hand from the business to be able to say, here's where we want to laser focus on the problems we need to solve.
But Dharm, I love this, and if you're picking up my body language, I got super excited because as I was listening to you walk through this, it suddenly occurred to me that you could probably very profitably apply AI to the specific problem of legacy system modernization and elimination of technical debt. Because what you just described is kind of, tell me your pain points is kind of a way to, it's the same process whereby you uncover onerous technical debt. And if you're able to then bring in your super tool that says essentially, hey, we can optimize here and shorten here and upgrade over here and refactor over there, that might be very useful. And I saw you nodded. So what are your thoughts?
So I think there possibly is a way to apply that. If we take a look though at the current sophistication of AI, it's very narrow. So the AI that you create to be able to detect fraud in transactions cannot drive a car. So to say that we can have an AI that can look at a complex problem, which is multifaceted, and then give you a strategy to refactor that, I'm not quite sure that we're there yet. Can it maybe help you in certain aspects of that? Yes, but not as a whole. That's one of the jobs AI is not going to take away. Strategic thinking, that type of kind of that n-dimensional, what human beings do really well, that creativity.
Which is actually a great question because that's always, the concern that technologists have and increasingly non-technologists have. Has AI or machine learning taken away folks' jobs?
So I think if we look at that question, it's not as simple as a yes and no answer. On the one side, AI machine learning will make certain jobs obsolete, but it will open up other jobs on the other side. So are we looking at individual just jobs lost, or are we looking at the net? What's gained? And that's the more important way to look at it. Do I think over time certain job functions will be changed or even replaced? Yes, that's inevitable. If you look at the horse and buggy and cars, if you look at candles and electricity, it's going to happen. It's We have a lot more consciousness and context about that happening now than previously, and we know where this technology can take us. So I think we are setting ourselves up to retrain and reposition people, not only in their careers, but within the organization to help move things forward. So the kind of the short answer is yes, but on the other side is it's opening up a world of possibilities.
So it's kind of AI and machine learning are kind of that rainbow bridge to that world of possibilities.
Yes, absolutely. So you can, for example, take a team that's really only focused on one thing, and maybe with AI and machine learning, they can look at other areas of the firm where you didn't have the resources or the time to do it.
Dharm, thank you so much for being here with us today. Very much appreciate your thoughts. I know you have quite a lot more, and I hope you'll come back to the show. But thank you again.
Thank you very much, John. I really appreciate it. I enjoyed the conversation, and I'm happy to come back whenever you'll have me.
Okay, great. And many thanks again to today's sponsor. Their information is linked below.